All right, sorry about that. I have been like scrambling to get everything together, but
No
I think
worries.
we're mostly on time. Yep, 11 it says. So how are you doing?
Great, actually. Today I'm a little bit tired, but the last few weeks were better than the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
And yeah, also I mentioned my vacation. My vacation I went to. I had 2 weeks off and went to Turkey, which was really nice and helped a lot with relieving stress. And yeah, I feel refreshed, and I'm already settled in back in the job, and yeah, it was a great time. Yeah, I feel great.
Sorry, one sec. I was in the wrong scene. I apologize for that, chat. Thank you for letting me know. Peter, I'm glad you feel great. I'm also glad because last time you had talked, you said you went on that boating trip. It was for a week, and you said a
Mhm.
week wasn't long enough, and that you'd already learned in the past that 2 weeks is long enough to disconnect. I feel bad because now you have July through most of December to
Yeah.
without vacation, right? So, are you concerned about that at all? Are you concerned that there's
Actually, I have 2 more weeks in. I think it was October,
oh,
beginning October and September. So it's not as long of a break without holidays, and yeah. But otherwise, I would be concerned. Yeah.
okay, yeah. That's great. I thought it was just going to be this for the rest of the year, and I think that would be
Oh,
pretty tough. But
yeah.
beginning of October means you've got about like 3 more months. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
not too bad. Okay, so I'm glad things are going a lot better. Um,
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing the rest of this stuff. So I'll let you keep going here.
Yeah, so I prepared some bullet points. I hope I answered all your questions along the way, but feel free to interrupt or challenge. Yeah, so I mentioned I booked another massage for
Mhm.
myself and my girlfriend, and yeah, it was so great. We booked another one for July. Uh, yeah, also we did one in Turkey, which was a whole nother experience, and yeah, we got the taste of it, and really like to get massages every
So,
now and then. Yeah.
so I want to ask you because you said that the first one was this year in your entire life.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like it's relaxing? Is it helping cut through some of the work stress, or is it just a nice experience that's, it's just nice to go to?
Um, I feel it's relieving stress. I don't know how much though. It's a nice experience, and you get to disconnect. You get out of the house. We get connected with some good food. And next to the massage where we go to is an Chinese restaurant, and yeah, it's an whole thing, and we really like it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for if you're stressed to almost just distract yourself if nothing else has worked.
Mhm.
And this fills some amount of time, maybe 2 hours when you
Yeah.
include food or travel or something like that. And yeah, for that time, if you're not thinking about it, then that could work for you.
Yeah.
So good to hear. And yeah, Turkey was nice too. Let's see what you wrote here: water rafting, muddy
Yeah,
buggy
so
tour. Yeah.
we planned a complete chill holiday, and I wanted to relax only on on the beach, and only swimming pool, and yeah, don't leave the hotel. But after a few days, we got the itch to do something else, and yeah, we tried a bunch of stuff we never tried before. Went water rafting in the mountains there. Got a buggy tour, which was a complete uh, experience.
Yeah.
We were completely flooded with mud, and yeah, we had to take a shower, multiple showers to get rid of the mud. It was really nice, and yeah, we also got a scuba diving tour in the sea. We both have diver licenses, and
Mhm.
the last time we went diving were 7 years back then, or something like that. So yeah, it was really nice to do that again.
Yeah, I think the part I'm focused on from what you said is that you originally went with this thought of that's it, I'm doing nothing. And
Yeah.
then after a few days, you felt like you not only could do stuff, but wanted to do stuff.
Hmm.
So I think this is part of that whole 2 weeks to feel refreshed from
Yeah.
a vacation. And it's just almost without fail, there's some amount of time that goes into just disconnecting, just turning your brain off and being like, I am not going to work tomorrow. I'm not going in 3 days. I'm not going in 7 days. So yeah, I'm glad to hear it. And I think really probably the most important thing you took is something you've already learned from this, which is just book at least 2 weeks. And that way you've got the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next part I mentioned, my stress levels are normalizing. I'm under a lot of stress still, but I feel I got a handle on it. It's not overwhelming anymore. It's after coming back from holiday, it wasn't as stressful. I think I was in a stress phase after taking the exam for my role, which wasn't lifted off my shoulders. And the vacation was really great for this. And after that, obviously I have a lot of stress, but it's easier for me to disconnect and do something in the evening, which wasn't possible before the holiday.
Okay. And now, what do you mentioned part of what you attribute this to is the exam is no longer hanging over you. How much is just you growing accustomed to the role? I haven't heard about the project management stuff yet either, but yeah, how much is the changing role versus you changing?
I have a lot of stuff to talk about the product management side and what's influencing that, but I think it's a combination of getting back from vacation and being in a role where I know more or less what's coming up in a week.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Obviously, there is a lot of new stuff hitting me from a week-to-week basis, but it's nothing that it doesn't feel overwhelming anymore.
Okay. I think that is, this may sound dismissive. I don't mean it dismissively, but that's the baseline for any job. Should not be overwhelming, should not be a crushing amount of stress. So with transition periods, you go into that phase for a little bit and then, hopefully get out of it quickly enough. It sounds like you're there. I don't want to jump too far ahead though. So let's just keep moving down the list because I will eventually talk about the project management stuff.
Yeah, right. So.
Oh wait, no. What? Drop the daily coding. Hold on. Talk about that.
Yeah, right. It's. I think I have written down it a lot further down. But yeah, it's something. In our last session, I mentioned I'm on the last 20% for the app.
Yeah.
Before releasing it, before launching, and I was so focused on releasing it before the vacation holiday. And after our mentoring session, I threw out that plan and gave myself some space and basically more time. But I wasn't going to drop it altogether. Yeah. And after coming back from holiday and the first few weeks after holiday back on the job, I was so refreshed. I coded and I finished the last 20% more or less. There are still some minor things I want to do, but it was in a state where I said, "This is releasable. I can publish it, and let's see where that goes." And I released it on iOS and Android, and basically didn't code afterwards. It was I have a lot to do on that front, but it was a point where I was able to stop myself, and the time I gained through not coding in the evening is used for meeting friends, going out, or basically relieving more stress. And dropping that routine was hard, but I now see how much pressure I put on myself while doing so.
Okay, so let me write some of this stuff down. I left our mentoring session and I talked to my wife, at the end of our work days, and I say, "Oh, here's what we talked about." And I'm like, "Peter is nuts." I'm like, Peter said that releasing an app is not stressful. And I'm like, I didn't get it. And I was thinking about it. This is now 2 months ago. And I really like what you said here. You realize how much pressure you were putting on yourself because your viewpoint originally, and I say that you're nuts endearingly. I don't mean that you're actually crazy, but you had said that coding was a stress outlet for you and has typically been that in the past for you, and that there was just so much going on. And being able to drop something is daunting because in the back of your mind, you've always got to wonder, what if I don't pick this back up? What does this mean to me? What does it mean to drop it? Is that a failure? There's a whole lot of questions that raises. With this, did you happen to catch the mentoring session I did with Rami just in the last week?
The last half, I didn't. I wasn't able to watch the first half.
Okay. Okay. Well, one of the things he talked about is he had a Duolingo streak of something like 140 days. And he was like, I want to get that to a year because for whatever reason, a year was meaningful. And I said, as much as possible, if you can, just drop it because think of how long you'll feel bad for. It was like a few minutes. Well, he sent me a message privately and he said, I did drop it. And he also did some other things as follow-ups from that. My point in all of this is, I think it's good for you to analyze what's going on in your life and what can shift. And you are clearly at the point where it's not so much what more can I do, it's what less can I do. And so cutting out this thing and getting back to it when you feel like I have the time, I have the energy, I think is really important. So there's that I wanted to say. The other thing was you should post your app in Show and Tell on Discord. I'd like to see it. And then the final thing was just out of curiosity, what still needs to be done on the app?
I have a backlog on stuff, minor things. It's nothing preventing the user to use the app. Sign in with Google doesn't work, which is, I think, a nice addition to the app to make it more round and more complete. And it feels more like a finished product and an onboarding tutorial for users. But both of those features are things where I say, nobody is prevented to use the app without them.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, there are people I've seen in sort of the same position as you where they have career aspirations, they have personal projects, and then they have a family and a life and everything else outside of those things. And I think that it's always the personal projects that take the back burner, and I think that's how it should be. And that might seem disappointing, but I think this is one of those things where it's like, you might not come back to this for 3 months. And when you do, maybe you think, I don't have the zeal that I originally had to incorporate sign in with Google. And that's totally fine. So I attribute at least some of this to the vacation you took because it gives you that perspective, that time away. So again, just applause for figuring all of this stuff out. Great job thinking through all of this. The vacation probably also provided some space that was needed to think about these things. Yeah. Okay.
Although I will admit it feels wrong at some times to don't code in the evening.
Yeah. But think about this. This is a weird way to say things. You are like a machine that needs to be maintained in certain ways. And if you are coding in the evening and it's leading to you feeling overwhelmed at your job, then you become ineffective at basically everything that you do. And that's what you were saying before your vacation. You came home and you just didn't have an outlet for your stress. So it just accumulated. And that led to 4 days of sitting on the beach, which is great, until you finally were like, okay, now I can do other stuff. So yeah, I think this was a good time for you to take a vacation.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then, wow, looking at houses to buy.
It isn't a topic for myself the past 3 years on off looking for houses, and basically there popped up an opportunity in the neighborhood of family and friends, family in this case, and we were looking at one house and it was so promising I couldn't turn it down. But I like to think about the house because it's another disconnect and gets you out of the house and into new thought patterns. And I was browsing through Pinterest basically for new bathroom trends, which wasn't the place I've seen myself into.
You said something along the lines just now of like too hard to pass up. Did you put an offer in? Is that what you're saying? Oh, you did. Was it
basically? Yeah. So it's an oh boy, English terminology for the for housing market. There's one person selling the house for the owner for the house. Basically, there's a middleman, and they are collecting prospects currently, and I've signed in as a prospect, but now we have to wait for the owner to decide who the potential buyer will be.
Got it. Well, good luck.
Thank
I think
you.
it's we just talked about transition periods, and if you heard any part of the Ramey mentoring session, he just bought a place and he's in the process of renovating and of selling his last place, and this has taken the entirety of his time. So if this does go through, then I would say, like, don't pick up coding again for the next 2 months until that October vacation, and then maybe that can serve as a reset or something.
Yeah, so the current owner will be staying in the house for the next few months. So I will be able to transition into the home beginning of next year. So it's a long transition period, but yeah,
Gotcha.
I wasn't able to pass off the offer.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. I hope it goes through, and I hope you like it. You've now mentioned twice in this session something that I don't think I've heard you say in previous sessions, which is that there were a couple of things that have been getting you out of the house. You work in an office, right?
No, I
you
work
don't?
from home. This is my work setup I'm working from, yeah.
Okay. I
My
probably
so
Oh, go on.
I'm hired as a remote employee for a Berlin company, and I'm basically working remotely, and I'm about 5 or 6 hours away from the office.
Okay, got it. The reason I mention this is because, for one, language is very interesting because it can give hints as to what people are thinking about or how they're thinking about it. And this might have been some of the cause of your stress earlier without me realizing it to be able to point it out. But this is one of the things I see from remote employees, like a decent amount, which is if you are in the same environment all the time, you get into certain routines, and those routines can sometimes be bad routines. And you mentioned getting out of the house. So this is something I'll put a star next to for now. It's not something I have any specific recommendations about, but next time you're feeling stressed, just consider how much am I getting out and what am I doing and how am I leaving my home office?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. So transitioning into the more career stuff for the mentoring session here.
Yeah.
The past few months, except the vacation, were mainly spent in Berlin. I had a bunch of meetings I had to attend to. I basically traveled for a complete week to Berlin, which means Monday arrival and Friday back. And there were a bunch of on-site meetings I was looking forward to. For example, a big summer event where the whole company comes together, and it's called business meeting to somehow be able to present this as a business opportunity, but basically it's getting food and drinks afterwards. Yeah.
Very funny that they call that a business meeting, because I feel like in America, at least when I've been to these things, they just say, look, this is a morale event or it's a fun time. And there's no euphemism around it.
It was called a business meeting, and they were really strict about this. You weren't allowed to call it a summer event or a party.
Yeah, there's got to be some reason for that. But wait, so you're saying
upper management corporate was the reasoning? Yeah.
But there's got to be some deeper, like, is there a legal thing where if they call it a fun event, then they need to invite everybody or something? Or
I don't know.
Anyway, so you went to Berlin. You said most of the last 2 months.
Yeah, I think it was there for 3 weeks after the vacation. So the past month I was 3 weeks in Berlin. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a lot. When does that schedule change?
Basically now. I'm
okay.
For now I'm done with the Berlin trips. I try to go to Berlin for about 1 week a month. I try to. I think it's really great to connect with the peers and especially with the direct reports. Yeah, so I will be there again, but 3 weeks in 5 weeks were too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was too less free time, too work related for those weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because you're away from your home and whatever comforts or
Mhm.
friends or family that you're used to seeing. Because 5 to 6 hours is too much to say, okay, it's Wednesday night, I'm going to drive back.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Um, so you've been going to Berlin roughly a quarter of the time in the last year or so before this?
I would say a little less, but yeah,
Okay.
around there. Yeah.
Yeah. And while you're there, everything is fine as long as it is kept to that, 1 week every maybe 5 weeks kind of schedule. Okay. Yeah. So no major problems there. All right.
Yeah, I know I need the weekend afterwards to disconnect, but especially if the evenings are long. So when you're in the office and there are some peers there, you don't look at the clock. You don't have to go to anywhere except the hotel back to the hotel. And yeah, so I have long hours when I'm in Berlin. More around the 10-hour mark, and afterwards talking to some colleagues or going to drinks with them. It's long working days, and I know I need weekends off of that.
Okay. A couple of interesting things here. One, you mentioned earlier long hours. You were just talking about because you happen to be in Berlin.
Mhm.
Okay. Two, the 10 hours a day in itself. So I had a manager at one point who at some point in time did something like this. He commuted
Mhm.
from 2 hours away, stayed in an apartment from Monday to Thursday, and then went back on Friday.
Mhm.
And apparently this person just like stayed in the office from 7 a.m. until like 9 p.m. or something. Because when you're away from your normal life, you think, well, I traveled here for work. I'm just going to dump everything into work. But then you're the one who pays the cost for that after you've gotten back home.
Mhm.
So does that 10 hours feel like too much? I know you said the time kind of flies by while you're there with coworkers.
Um, it depends. So I try to go to some evening event always if I'm there. So meeting some old colleagues which left the company some time back, or going to bowling alleys with some colleagues. But you are always surrounded with colleagues, and
Yeah.
you tend to talk about work, and it depends really strongly on the company I'm with. If it's a disconnect after work, or if it feels like working more than the 10 hours.
Yeah, I see. So are there ever any days where you are out, your colleagues are just talking about work and you just think, I've had it. That's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um,
It's hard to find an exit for those hang-ups. Basically, who's waiting for me if I'm staying in a hotel, right?
yeah.
I'm not going early because I have something to do, but because there is nothing. I'm going back to the hotel and laying in bed. So it's hard to disconnect and going away from the group.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the sort of uniqueness of the situation is it's hard for you to then make friends outside of this environment if you're there, about 1/5 of the time, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, with that said, nothing makes you go out. You don't necessarily need an excuse other than, hey, I just want to spend a quiet night in
Mhm.
or whatever, go explore Berlin more yourself. Because what's concerning to me is I know you said this is under control and everything, but 10 hours a day is a lot. And you have gotten to the point where you're like, all right, I need to decompress on weekends. So then what happens if, you're moving houses and you don't have the weekend, but you would just come
Mhm.
back from Berlin and yeah, this is another one of those points where I try to watch this. And I don't know what it would feel like to leave after 8 hours or after a normal amount of time. Would you just be going back to the hotel? Would you be bored? So yeah, um, it's just something to keep an eye on.
Mhm.
Keep an eye on this and time investment. You need to have I'll just say no need to have a real excuse for not going to something. Although I'm sure you know that. Let's see. So yeah, the summer event. Was it just one day?
Basically, it was yeah, one whole day, and to call it a summer event, and basically allow for us to stay in a hotel overnight. They had to do some event in the morning, and it was basically a speech from our CEO, and we were afterwards free to go, and yeah,
Oh,
travel back home.
okay, yeah. And this is something you've been to before this as well, right? The business meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
it was the third time I attended one.
I see. I think I agree with you. I think this is a really good time to meet other people. And I think
Mhm.
it humanizes all the people you work with. It can be easy to get frustrated when you see just text messages or emails
Yeah.
come through. And then you finally see this person and you're like, oh, wow, how was I getting upset? Or there's nuance that you can finally clarify.
Yeah.
So for that, it's good. Do you ever find yourself, and I don't mean this as a leading question, just purely out of interest, do you ever find yourself thinking, I would prefer to just somehow live in Berlin or have the job be here?
I would love for the company to be here. I don't want to move to Berlin. It's not even a question I would consider.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like the city at all. But if the company was closer, I would try to attend the office for 2 days a week, maybe, and would stretch the time I get to decompress, basically.
Yeah. There is a lot to what you just said. And I think we're in a very unusual time in humanity because how many pandemics has anyone lived through? Like one, two, and we just did live through one. And you
Yeah.
started at the company during the pandemic and you got used to remote work, but you had to because there was no other way around it.
Mhm.
And now we're in this time where it's post everybody being in remote work. And in America, especially, we're seeing companies pull back employees into the office. And some people are complaining, some people are happy about that.
Mhm.
I've seen people who, as soon as the office doors opened again, like right toward the end of COVID, they were like, I have to go back. I can't focus at home
Yeah.
or I need the social interaction. And I myself went through something which I'm pretty sure you had seen, that whole post Google video
Mhm.
of, I just started going nuts. I just thought, like, I'm not talking to people. And I never thought that about myself because I've been streaming from this setup and able to
Mhm.
talk to people online and everything. So this could be a component to the stress that you have. And traveling 6 hours is not the best solution for this. And yet you're at this company and you're well positioned for growth. So there's no real way of working around this here. But I know you said you'd eventually like to be CTO someday. It would be maybe something to consider at a more local company, especially because as you grow, that face time might be expected more.
And I have seen this race in the last few months as well. So I feel like I have to more attend more meetings in Berlin, and especially with leading people and managing people, you try to be the person available, and it's easier to connect with them in face-to-face conversations than across the internet. Uh, Yeah, I agree, but at the current time, I would say it's manageable, and it's something I realized as of past few months that I have to be very I I have to watch what I'm doing and how much time I spend where for my own fulfillment and for the world fulfillment.
Yeah. And this goes back to the getting out of the house thing, which again, I feel like was a blind spot for me. So I apologize for, but I think these things are related. You need people, you need work fulfillment, you need friends, family, like all of these things come together. And if they're not in the right balance, it throws everything off. So
Mhm.
I also agree. I don't think there's much you could or should do about this right now. Like you said, can't move to Berlin, don't want to move to Berlin, can't
Yeah.
have the company just randomly move to you. And quitting the company, I think, would be a bad idea given all of the opportunities you have right now.
Yeah.
But these are the kinds of things where if I say, hey, Peter, where do you see yourself in 5 years? you might say I'd be steering more toward a local company, such that 2 years from now an opportunity arises and you say, you know what, I have already planted this seed a while ago, so now I can start to consider it more. So that's more why I bring this up right now, because I think that's where the healthy balance would be struck for you, given what you've said. So
Yeah.
Is there something like a local company in the long term? 5+ years. Yeah. Or whenever this company kind of stops serving your needs, right? Right now, I think you're definitely on the growth trajectory. You just got the leadership position, you got a pay raise with that. And probably in the next year or two, given how things have been going, that'll just keep kind of growing. At some point, it'll level off and you'll need to either push for it or find something else. So, yeah. All right. So, manager's party.
Yeah, right. So I got an invitation 1 week back, 2 weeks back maybe, from my direct manager, which is inviting all managers in the company, including CEOs, to attend a basically barbecue party at their house on a Saturday, which is really kind of them, and I really like the idea of doing that. But the whole I have to drive for 6 hours there is kind of daunting on me. We arranged 2 nights over there, so I'm basically staying with my girlfriend at a house from my colleague for 2 days, which was the only way I was able to convince myself to go there. But I know how important this meeting will be, and yeah, was something some random invitation I wanted to mention here.
Yeah. I have a few questions. One, are they calling this a business barbecue, or is
No.
it just okay?
The charades is off.
Good. So 2, is this what you always do? You drive to Berlin when you go?
Normally I go by train,
Okay.
but for holidays or basically weekends, I like to go by car to have more freedom when I leave, and yeah.
Okay. And then when is this? Because I didn't see the when.
In 2 weeks, the 19th. The Friday is the 19th, I think.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then for the weekend, yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I ask that is because I know you just said that 3 weeks out of the last 5 weeks in Berlin is too much. But given that you would typically go once every 5 weeks or so, I wondered if you could lump it in with that. And then that way you're staying for the whole week, although then your girlfriend would need to find a way to get there. But then she could take the train maybe.
Since nobody is holding me accountable for how many times I go to Berlin, I will convince myself that this was my trip to Berlin and try to avoid Berlin for the next month.
I see. Okay. No, that works. And then the last consideration I would say is, do you need the extra freedom? If you're staying at a colleague's place, do they have a car and maybe they could drive? You're going to the barbecue anyway.
So I don't know how much you know about the German train system, the Deutsche Bahn. It's not a fun trip to go to Berlin. It was you have always delay, and I have 2 turnovers. Stepping over, going from one train to another. I don't know how to call it. Yeah, and it's not a fun trip to get there, and you always arrived stress there, and hence I want to go with car.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So it's not necessarily about being able to drive within the city. It's more about I just want to make it there and not have to transfer. And okay. Yeah. Also, I will say this completely just irrelevant note. The stereotype of Germans in America is that they're very efficient and like well organized. And so to hear what you just said about the train is a surprise to me.
But it's a meme which is ever growing. The German trade system is a mess.
Okay.
Really is,
yeah. I'll have to keep that in mind if I ever end up on a train in Germany. Okay, but yeah, I think this is good. This is another one of those things where you're now at a level where you're not just going to these events for fun. There is a networking component to this, whether you acknowledge it or not. You are talking to other people in a setting outside of work. There will be work discussions. That is the one common thread for everybody. And it's what people always fall back to at any social gathering of work people. So I see this as a growth opportunity, although, a minor one, but it's the kind of thing where, yes, you kind of schmooze a little, you talk to people, you get to know them. So yeah. These events are for more than just fun at your level. Networking, yeah. All right, too many meetings.
Yeah, so my calendar in my work calendar is a mess. It's completely flooded with half-hour blocks of meetings, and you have the feeling after doing 8 hours of meetings that you didn't achieve anything. And I was prepared for this. I was going into this role and knowing there's coming a lot of meetings on myself. But I wasn't expecting that flood of meetings. And I tried to still be able to attend the project meetings of the ongoing project I was delegating earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not able to attend those meetings anymore. And I'm very selective of the meetings I attend.
Mm-hmm.
Some invitations I get as it would be nice to be there, but it's not necessary for me to be there. And I got really selective, and yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one of those just necessities. You are invited to more than you can go to, and it's not like they're expanding beyond the 40 hours a week, but they're scheduled concurrently, right? So you can't go to all of them and you need to pick. And then the other thing you mentioned is something I hear pretty commonly, especially from people who become managers, which is that you spend your day in meetings, but you do have individual work you need to do. And if you're in meetings all the time, when do you do them? So this is the sort of key theme that I think we've seen for you across the mentoring sessions is you will always want to take on a lot. You'll always want to hold yourself to a high standard. And I think a lot of the solution is always going to come from carving away. So how do you take things out of that equation? And meetings are no different from that. So, kudos to you for realizing that you might need to cut out even more than you already think so that you don't expand into more work time. So do you find yourself, not when you're in Berlin, you said, yeah, sometimes there are 10-hour days. Do you find yourself when you're at home working longer than a normal workday?
Yeah, but not by a lot. And I'm very cautious of not doing so. I try to not be the kind of guy that lets down the pen after exactly 8 hours.
Yeah.
But so if I had to put a number on it, I am working 8.5 hours a day maybe, and all the overtime I do I tend to work off on the Fridays, which is I think it's a working system for me.
Yeah. So wait, just to be clear, you're saying you do a little less on Friday to make up for the extra half hour?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
obviously not always possible. There are 9.5 hour meeting days in between, but they are spare.
yeah. And I think that's bound to happen. It's like, I think avoiding crunch time for developers is something that's really hard to do completely. And it's like, if I work at a job and 2 days a year, they say, hey, can you stay late? I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. If it was every weekend, I'd say that is not possible. I'm not doing that. With meetings, so when do you find that you're able to do your individual work in the day? Is it morning, lunchtime, afternoon, or just after work hours?
In between meetings. If I don't attend some meetings, I have my focus time, if I had to put a number on it, is really early in the morning. So around 6 o'clock, where everyone's still sleeping. I like to do my work there. But if I start working is so early, I'm not done after 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I have to stay at to 4 p.m., sometimes 5 p.m., and working from 6 to 5 is too much.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think this is like I said, the classic struggle of leaders, managers, and then some roles that are naturally in more meetings, which is typically, yes, product ownership, project management. So I think it's the same advice as usual, which is cut out what you can, delegate what you can, and really try to think what is very important. So I think your selectivity will continue to increase a little bit, to the point where you're carving out just an extra half hour here and there. And by the way, this is one of those things where you mentioned this with delegating, that old product that you were working on that had been about 25% of your time and was waning. And now you said you're not in the meetings anymore. By allowing someone else the space to step up, they did. And now I'm assuming it's being run pretty well. Do you have any complaints?
I don't. I still attend the political meetings, as I mentioned. There are some difficulty with the customers, but yeah, they're doing a great job. I can't complain, and I have another project which they tried to load up on myself, and I'm completely delegating this project to another person, and works fine.
Okay, good. Now, a while ago, you gave the very diplomatic answer when I said something like, hey, this sounds like you need to delegate more. You said, yes, that's something I need to work on. Do you feel like you've been able to work on it? Is there still stress or anxiety around delegating to other people?
I get itchy hands if the discussions go in a technical direction. There are some. Obviously, I want to become CTO, and some technical decisions I would like to make, and it's itching my hands to do so. But otherwise, I'm getting better. I'm not great at it. I think I need to work on what information, how to transfer information I gained to the one I'm delegating to, so such that they can work by themselves. I feel like there's too much follow-up meetings I'd have to attend to, so they can get all the information they need from me.
Yeah, and I think this is something you'll naturally learn in your experience as a manager of when did I give someone just enough that I delegated, well, and that I didn't need to be involved and that they had enough, and when do I need more? And that depends on the person, the project, the amount of work that needs to be done. So you'll calibrate all of those gauges for yourself as you delegate and then look back and think, did that work out or did it not?
Yeah.
So and again, this is why I know I harp on this with everybody, but why transition periods are just such an important time to be mindful of, because if you know that you're in one, then you know that there's going to be more stress than normal, and then it will go away when a certain, amount of time or an event has passed. So yeah. So let's see. Feels wrong to not attend meetings with customers. Yeah. Okay. So project management, we haven't talked about. Is that?
Yes.
Oh, I see. It's at the very bottom. Got it.
Yeah, we can. I step ahead. No worries. So we talked about the product. My manager asking myself, me, to transition from my product owner role into the product manager role.
Yeah.
And after our meeting, I more or less forced my manager to get on weekly one-on-ones with myself.
Yeah.
And the first thing I mentioned in some of those one-on-ones is how do I prioritize your wish to transition into product management versus my new role and filling out my new role. And we talked a bunch about this. Basically, I got his okay to wait with transitioning into product management until, let's say, I feel ready, more or less until I get to there. Yeah. So I have the backup for my manager, which I hadn't before, which was a lot of guesswork on my part, where my manager wants me to be and how I should prioritize my work. And after talking to him, it was much clearer.
Back up one step. You said I'm. It sounded like I'm the backup for my manager. What did you say?
No.
Oh, I misheard something. Sorry. Okay, carry on. I understand what you're saying now.
No. So I got the backup from my manager. So what I the last time we spoke, my manager hadn't told myself what should I prioritize? If I should work on getting as fast as
Oh,
possible into product management?
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that your manager now agrees with your position, basically. Yeah,
Right,
cool.
right.
Okay, got you. Yeah, that's the part I hadn't
Okay.
understood. Yeah, so your manager is on board with what your plan is. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's good. Is there any pressure you feel from your manager to speed up this timeline?
I know he wants as fast as possible, but there's no pressure he forces up on myself. I know his he expects from me that I have. He basically told me in 12 months he wants me be in the product management role, but I have 12 months to get there, and I am positive I be able to get to there in 12 months. It's not a timeline I feel stressed about.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you mentioned there were, I think, 4 other product managers and they wanted things as soon as possible. And now you're saying it sounds like your manager did. And I thought, oh, this is going to happen this summer or something. 12 months is, yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I think is good is that you fought for what you needed. I know you phrased it as like you more or less forced your manager to meet with you, but identifying what your needs are versus what your wants are is important in all aspects of life, especially when it comes to something like this. If you need support or you need a line of communication that you're not getting, then getting that thing is really important, or else you're probably duplicating work or doing different work. So it's one of those cases, like one of the situations I don't like being in is when I am a middleman for 2 other people. And I always think, why not just connect those 2 other people?
Yeah.
Well, in this case, you needed your manager, you got your manager. So anyway, kudos to you for doing that. I think that's good.
Another benefit of taking those one-on-ones is I mentioned I'm not firm with a lot of business decisions, and it's something I have to grow in. And he's the one I admire for his business expertise.
Yeah.
And hence, I'm using those one-on-ones to get insights in working on contracts, doing more contract work for customers. So basically, we have to renew our 5-year contracts we have with our customers for next year. And that's the first time I work with legal, which is a whole nother experience. And I like getting those insights, and it helps me to get another perspective on my new role.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think this is one of the qualities I think of people who want to grow is that you find resources that help you grow. So for example, seeking out mentors, finding that your manager has good business experience, and then still working with them. At some point, your manager may say, okay, look, you've transitioned. Let's cut these one-on-ones back to once every 2 weeks or something, at which point, hopefully that's fine. But yeah, keep looking out for opportunities like that, where you think that person has something I want, and then just go, take that skill, learn it from them. I think, so that's this next bullet point that you talked about. I know you got a couple more here. So big misjudgment on your side of a report.
Let's go for that one. So obviously I can't go too much into details, but I was pretty convinced of myself that I'm pretty good at people reading and judging people for what their intent is, and where they are heading and what they want. And I had one report. I know he was in a really tough space. Previous management did him bad, more or less. And so I was, I don't know if scared is the real word, but nervous going into the first one-on-one with this report. And I had misjudged him completely. He was more on the lines of, I need clear timelines, and I will figure this out. But as long and I was convinced of myself I had to provide this solution. I was not the one providing the solution, but he was sought out and basically figured out what his new role could be, and basically came prepared. And I didn't have to do anything, and it was a interesting learning experience to see that I misjudged someone so significantly.
Well, I think there are a couple parts of this. One is you only have inputs to go off of, and they're either inputs you see or inputs that other people tell you about. And what other people tell you is not always accurate. And what you see might only be a portion of the picture that gives you the totally wrong idea of what's happening. So, if I were to ask you, how could you reproduce this learning for the next potential person you see in this situation? What would you say?
Ask them.
Yeah. Okay. So,
It was. I mentioned to you that I did a lot of getting to know each other. First introduction meetings after I got the role, and he was one of those reports I was warned about previously, and I had false assumptions basically based off that.
yeah. Yeah. And this is the kind of thing where it always makes you wonder who is just not getting something basic, some resource that they need, some support that they need, and as a result are then flying off the rails. And it's hard because in this case, you were told, hey, this person is someone to watch out for. It's not the kind of person then you'd say, all right, I'm going to dump even more time into this person so that I can help them out. So
Yeah.
it's really tough. And I think that's one of the challenges you need to be careful about. And yeah, like you said, just ask them in the future. And then of course you need to learn how to, do I trust their answer? Do I follow from other sources,
Obviously,
etc.
yeah.
But yeah. Wow, good. So you must have felt relieved. Do you know that this person, were they also frustrated and they felt relieved too from all of this?
I asked them for not directly for feedback, but I asked them how they feel at the end of our first. I think it was 2.5 hour talk with each other, and yeah, they felt relieved. They felt heard a long time ago. That was his main criticism, that no one was talking to him, and he had a bunch of issues he wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
He was not looking for some solution for them, but he wanted to be heard and know that someone would care to listen. And yeah, it was a great feeling to be that person for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's great that you could be there for them. I also think this sort of points to how corporate culture can get a bit twisted at times. And as you rise in the ladder, you should be cognizant of this because this person just wanted to feel heard. Who knows how many people they talked to in the past? Who knows what things happened?
Yep.
I don't know if you saw in chat earlier, Physitronic was just talking about how their boss just keeps doing something in a suboptimal way. And when they get feedback, they're just like, oh, I'm not doing that. And I just thought, what kind of mindset do you have to just not be open to feedback anymore? And at some point, that pervades the company culture, and then you have many people who aren't open to feedback, and that's when things become sort of toxic. So, as much as you can, try to push against that toxicity, and listen to people, help them out.
Yeah.
And so you've got this last thing here, working on some restructuring.
Basically, there's some reports need to be in another position than they are currently, and I knew that going into that role and getting those reports. I knew the names who I was assigned to, and yeah, that is something I strive at doing: restructuring, organizing, and basically getting the right people in the in one room to talk about how we could arrange those things. And yeah, I like doing this kind of work, and yeah, currently doing that restructuring work for some reports. Yeah.
That's good. I remember you telling me when you met with a bunch of these people that they felt they were in the wrong area. So now, is this all kind of settled? Do you still have any reports that you feel want to be elsewhere?
The restructuring is not happened yet,
Oh,
and
see.
it's hard for the one report I have to get a title in our current organization structure. And he's someone you have to provide a really strict and well structured working environment and they strive in this, but they need boundaries, and it's hard in our current organization to define those boundaries, because it's currently working more on the lines of you do what needs to be done, and it's hard to define some of those positions we need to fill, but it's currently in the process of being defined.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good. I also think, look, depending on this person's role, are they more junior, more senior, somewhere in the middle?
Senior principal.
Okay. Yeah. That person, I'll just write this here. That person, I think, needs to get used to that lack of clarity.
Yeah.
Only because I think that is what happens sort of later in someone's career. It's, hey, we don't even necessarily know what problems there are, let alone the solutions for them. So go figure that out for yourself almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess some people don't necessarily thrive in that. And how much can be done to address that from other people? And is it their job to do it? So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
I think in this, especially for him, it's possible to define those areas, and it is overdue to do that for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of this, it almost sounds like I could guess that this person's been at the company for a very long time.
Yeah.
And and that back then things were clearer only because of the scale being different, and now they're unclear because not only has the scale changed, and so they're like, I liked the old world way of doing things, and it was like, well, that was never really intended to, so okay, couple of quick other things. We got about 4 minutes left, so apps and books, focus on whatever you want to focus on.
Obviously, app is launched, no marketing, and I did an oopsie on Azure. I selected the wrong SQL database, which is basically $300 a month, where I should have selected only $30 a month database. Fun side note on this side. Yeah.
Well, with the marketing thing, I know originally you talked about, this was now like 3 sessions ago, you talked about, I want to get better at marketing. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you should necessarily do that. How do you feel about where things have landed? I'm guessing there aren't, tons of users necessarily, but yeah.
That's my issue. I told you that my goal with the app was getting at least a handful of users that love the app and love using the app. And I'm not there yet. I haven't found the user base where I would say someone is actively using the app. And I don't know if that is because some essential features are missing, or if the app is bad in their eyes. And my next step would be to do some surveys and getting those information out of them. But as I said, I'm on hold with my apps currently to deflate a little bit.
Yeah.
But that would be the next steps. Yeah.
I have a suggestion for this. So when I think marketing, I think of the more traditional things sometimes, advertising and, how do you write copy for these? But in this case, what might be nice, do you know any friends who fall into the target audience of your app who maybe don't know about your app? Yeah, because, okay, I was going to say, one of the things I benefited from massively when I was working on Botland, and I'm going to do it again with the game I'm working on now, is to just get one of those friends over to your place, or it's a phone app, so I guess you could bring it to them, and just sit them down and say, just think out loud. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to interrupt throughout and tell me what you think about this stuff. And you'll know pretty quickly if you do 2 or 3 of these things that, okay, here's the common feedback. Oh, there's a pain point around this. I would have loved to sign in with Google. And you're like, oh, good, I should prioritize that.
Yeah.
Who knows? And then from that feedback, you can figure out, yeah, okay, sounds like this is pretty solid, or there are some known pain points. No rush on doing that, but that's a really good way of pursuing this because it doesn't feel so formal. And then, buy friends at dinner or something. I'll write that down. I suggested having friends walk through the app and then ask them for their feedback as they go.
I want to do this so badly because it's finishing a chapter of 3D development of this app, and it feels wrong to pause this. On the other side, I know it does myself good to do so.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases where I was kind of talking about this earlier with coding. there are times when you take on tech debt because you have a bigger need. Maybe there's a pressing deadline, and it'll feel bad when you're doing it, but you know that it's necessary. And this is one of those things where you just said, for my own mentality, I have to do this. I don't want to do it, but that's what growth is. You've learned that you need to rise above the wants and get to the needs. I'll let you. Let's talk about this super quickly because it's probably not gonna take too long.
Yeah, right. I know you are looking for some books, and every once in a while I am able to read or listen to books. And I finished the Lean Startup book.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the showcase, or basically as a follow up on your latest video, or one of the latest videos, on the rapid prototyping.
Yeah.
And I would recommend this Lean Startup book. It was lengthy at times, but I like the insights into measuring and how rapid prototyping can be led to some startup, lean startup, as they call them. I like the book, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm
And
currently listening to the book mentioned there.
this is a book, not actual like.
Yeah, right. It's a collection of essays written in the form of a book.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to check some of this stuff out at some point, and I always felt like, oh, where am I going to find the time to do this and everything? So yeah, I've got to work in the time myself.
Do you know? Have you heard of Blinkist?
No, what is that?
They summarize books efficiently. Basically, write down a short summary of the books with the essentials on
Oh, cool.
on them. Yeah,
Is that free?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay. I was like, I would use that for a bunch of books. Well, thank you, Peter. This kind of concludes our session number 6. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being so thoughtful and writing out all the notes ahead of time. So yeah.
Thank you for your time and for your insights. I really like talking to you, and reflecting on the last 2 months in this case. I really enjoy it.
Well, great. I do too, and great job with everything. It sounds like you're really on the right track here, so I'm glad.
Thank you.
All right, well, take care, Peter. Have a good night.
Have a nice day.